Mark Twain once said that truth can be stranger than fiction. Real life is sometimes filled with events so bizarre that they're unlikely to happen compared to the ones that are, kind of conjured up in our imaginations. And this is probably why many of us enjoy true crime films or documentaries.
Hello.
They help us to better understand the world along with its darker side.
I want to know their motives. It's always been like that. I wonder what's happening in their head. Now, there have been various criminal cases used as the reference of movies and documentary series. And since it is Friday, it is the weekend, we'll be giving you some 3 crime document series recommendation to spend your weekend with. Get ready to be thrilled. All right, so our first one
2002,
is Girl in the Picture,
photograph.
which follows an investigation into a young woman's death from a hit and run. Police, however, soon learned that it wasn't as simple as an accident. The woman left behind an infant son and much older husband who mysteriously appeared in a photo with the victim as a child. The picture was passed along years later to investigate journalist Matt Burbeck. It took more than 20 years to disentangle the web of lies to reveal the true grim story of the young mother's real identity. I watched this and I was scared and I need the lights to be on. I did.
I remember the phone call and she said she was pregnant.
In our minds,
And let's move on
police,
to a
even the president of the United
docu-series or
States, had no
documentary
authority over
series entitled Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. This film follows a fundamentalist church leader, Warren Jeffs, who created a system of abuse and coercion within the church authority. Members, some of them underage, were forced into marriage, blind obedience, and isolation. This docuseries sees former FLDS members and survivors coming forward to share their story.
Believe them because they're your parents.
It was for our salvation. You did whatever it took, even if it was wrong.
And last but not least is The Raincoat Killer, Chasing a Predator in Korea. The series following an investigation into a South Korean serial killer who brutally murdered his victims during the 2000s. A fear spread throughout the city of Seoul. The hunt became more urgent, and the series set out to give you adrenaline rush, making you feel like taking a part of this hunt.
but as more cases arose, we became certain that this was committed by one
So
person.
actually, I was saying, we always like to talk about this before me and Paul, Maizan, and we were saying that, living abroad before, living here in Indonesia, I'm always afraid of, spirits and ghouls. But when I live in the United States, I'm afraid at most because of people. I get paranoid. I always watch behind my back, especially when I go home at night. Hence, I don't understand why that I love now real life crime stories, especially that I grew up with and I know these people and I watch them on the TVs and whatnot. Now, of course, when you like these kind of series and become obsessed, is it normal? And what are the impact that can be caused by watching this genre, especially for our psychological condition? Now, to dig into this topic here in the studio, we already have our mental health practitioner and researcher, Maizan Dianati. Good morning, Maizan. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
I think from that first take, I'm very obsessed. I like it. I love the thrill about it. And what really intrigued me at most is they actually look like they're normal people from the outside.
Yeah.
And that kind of triggers me to know what happened to them that they become monsters like that. So now, basic question, why do you think that people, especially in this generation now, people are attracted to more these kind of like crime stories?
Well, yeah, it's actually very normal because it's relating to certain factors. The first one would be relating to our tendencies to look for like thrill, because it can be fascinating and entertaining for us. So experts said that the experience of watching true crime documentaries or films, it's the same as the experience of riding on a roller coaster. Because like we can expose ourselves to situations that can be dangerous for us, but we know that we are in a safe environment because we're just watching it through our TV, right? So it can give a sense of adrenaline shock, and that's what makes people love to watch that story. And other than that, as human beings, we are such a curious creature, right?
Correct.
So
Yes.
it's like solving mysteries, and also watching this type of movie can give a chance for us to take a glimpse of what's happening inside those killers' mind,
Yeah.
and we want to know, as what you've mentioned before,
Yeah.
why they can behave like
Yes.
that, because it's something that's unthinkable for us.
Act
so-
heinous like
Yeah.
that. There's like an inner Inspector Gadget inside of us, and we want to know what's going on.
Yeah, because a lot of it has to do with curiosity,
Yeah.
but as well, it makes us, you know, somebody once told me, a lot of people actually say, too much of a good thing can leave you wanting less. In fact, too much of this, can that have an impact on you? For example, you know, if you're curious about something and then you watch it and you watch more and more of it, can that eventually lead to something else? For example, paranoia. Can you start thinking like, oh my goodness, there's so many of these cases out there, and then you start worrying about every little interaction you have with strangers. What are some of the negative impacts that can happen if you watch too much of this stuff?
Yeah, paranoia is one thing. People can be more neurotic when they expose themselves too much of this type of information. Like they would think that the world is not a safe space anymore.
Right.
They would easily lose trust for the people around them, although it can be unnecessary to do that. Yeah? So if you've found yourself in a situation where you should double check your door every time, every like few minutes, or you would tend
It's changing your behavior.
Right. These things, it can be shown as symptoms of anxiety, and if it's already too much, it can be caused by watching too much of these things.
So why again, I want to add on to what Caroline asked you earlier. So why is it then we as humans, as we get into like the streaming era, and now that we have all this access, why is it that not only us as consumers, but the producers of these things are much more now gearing towards producing real life stories as opposed to fiction? Because we were fine with fiction before, and you can get I would argue that you can get thrills watching, put Carol in front of a horror movie for 10 minutes. I guarantee you it's like riding a roller coaster for her. So I want to know what it is. Why is it that we're shifting more towards this? We're trying to find all these real stories, true life stories that are now being retold.
Because it's more real in a sense. So people would think about these things as something that's rare to be happening in real life. So they have more curiosity towards that, because it's something that can be happening now in the real world situations. And according to the studies in University of Illinois as well, people, especially women, love to watch this type of true documentaries because there are more potentials for women to be the victims. So
it's more engagement too. Right.
Like fiction's just not doing it anymore. Like you've got to get something a little bit more on edge, and I guess this would do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a question that I want to ask you, but you know, again, I think right now people are blown away by one Netflix docuseries. It's the Jeffrey Dahmer story that has already set Netflix record as the biggest series debut, with 196.2 million hours viewed in the first week itself. Let's see the trailer right now.
Here we are. Home sweet home.
I love you so. I want you to know.
Oh, what is that smell?
Gonna miss your love the minute you walk out that door. So please don't go.
Now, that's just a little short. I already watched this. I finished it within a day. It was like a night, 3 hours, run through it. Again, it was something that it brings me back memories to my childhood, because I remember in the 90s, I watched Jeffrey Dahmer live when it's interviewed, when he was still alive and whatnot. But seeing the movie right now, seeing it more detailed, it was very gruesome, yet alone. And this has nothing to do with me. But I'm pretty sure for those families or the victims, and the loved ones of the victims, seeing this seeing it more diligently, it's more real, and it's more, again, more detailed and whatnot. It must bring back trauma to them. What is your intake for this?
Yeah, although it can be entertaining for most of the viewers who watched it, but for the families and friends of the victims,
Yeah.
it can be very unsettling for
Yeah.
them because like seeing this thing in such graphic way, it can reawaken the memories or even cause them to like imagine their loved ones being
Yeah.
in that situation. So
Yeah.
it would become more difficult for them to distance themselves from
It's like coming back again.
this,
And even there was a disclaimer by the one that played Jeffrey Dahmer, Evan Peters. He said, we want this to be a side of the victim. We don't want to normalize Dahmer, but we want to give we want to give the family, the victims, this is their perspective or whatnot. Now, when I watched this, it really intrigues me so much because seeing the backstory of Dahmer, right? He came from a family. He has the parents of a broken home and whatnot. It kind of reflects me back to like how I should be as a parent. What do you think about that? Because I don't want my children to go through that path. Like, if something happens with me and my husband, or if let's say me and my husband have a quarrel, whatnot, would have an impact with my children, just like as Dahmer did.
Because again, like with this psychopathic disorders, where people don't feel remorse after killing people, it can be it can be caused by both biological and environmental factors. So yes, like there are some people who are already genetically can show no remorse towards others, but maybe like as we saw in Dahmer's story, it's relating to the fact of the abuse, emotional abuse and negligence from the parents that reawaken those senses, those sense of like vengeful or wanting to take more control of their surroundings in an extreme way because he never had a chance to have it before, right? The impact of childhood situations would be like very important.
As parents, Paul, we kind of reflect back to that, I mean, as a parent, we do have mistakes and whatnot. We never want to have like one certain point where our children would be traumatized because of one certain thing or one certain moment.
Yeah, I'm not a nature versus nurture guy. I'm a nature and nurture person. I'm a true believer that there's always a bit of both, no matter how big or small. There's always been a long-standing argument from those that oppose people like us, or even especially kids, but younger people watching these sort of, whether it's crime movies that are fictional or even just documentaries, because that gives people ideas, or some would argue that teaches you how to do certain things and get away with it. What's your stance in regards to how this sort of content or a film should be consumed?
Yes, it should be consumed by people, especially with this Dahmer, because it's quite graphic violence itself. So it should be consumed for people above 18 years old, because below that age, like our critical thinking is not very good yet. So as we saw in TikTok right now, loads of teenagers tend to idolize Dahmer instead of
crazy,
because like they only see, okay, like I'm in my dark period and I found some similarities with
They feel
him.
like they can relate.
That
is scary.
It can be really scary if people see that kind of impact instead of more empathizing towards the victims.
But we have seen that happen in the past. For example, like Charles Manson. He was idolized by so many people, and you wonder, like from our perspective, we'd be like, what are you doing? But there still were many people out there writing letters or idolizing.
Yeah, Chris Watts, the one that killed Naomi, the wife, Shannon Watts, she was pregnant. Killed the wife, killed the 2 kids, put it on an oil tank, and he has a lot of fans, lovers who wants to be married with him. So I don't get the people who was writing those letters or those fans. Like, why do you idolize a perpetrator or someone that's doing evil?
Yeah, it's the same as well with the Ted Bundy situation. Like, loads of females going to the trial and then dressing up the same way as the victim does. So like it's relating as well to the concept where like as a child growing up, like we were quite familiarize ourselves with the fact, like bad boys will turn into a good boy with some tender loving care, and sometimes the people, females maybe who have like quite a low self-esteem towards themselves, they would think that this is a chance for her to, for them.
It'd be like, he was like that with everybody else, but he won't be like that with me.
That's true.
That's a popular one as well.
My goodness.
Okay, so it is the weekend. People are going to consume, excuse me, a lot of content this weekend. So what are some of the tips from you for us when we want to approach watching some of these docuseries, some of these crime stories that seem to be very interesting, but without it affecting our daily lives or our psyche?
Yeah, we just focus on the, like seeking for the thrill part.
Okay.
But if we saw that it's already affected our emotional and also our behavior in a way that it's not that good anymore. For example, you have the paranoia, or
You
even
think about it too much.
yeah, or even like when we see something violence and we tend to be like less sensitized with that.
Oh, you
Yeah.
desensitize,
Yeah,
right?
so
Oh,
if
right,
it's already happening,
Yeah.
maybe it's the time to stop.
Okay, that's actually a good point, because most people would just watch more. They're like, oh, I'm fine with this, and
Yeah,
they'll just
yeah.
keep scrolling.
That's me.
You're getting a little desensitized. Better be
Exactly.
careful.
Yeah.
Right. All right, so thank you so much. You're a fan of these docuseries as well?
Actually, yes.
Any-
Yeah.
What are the what's one you recommend perhaps for our viewers that you think is good?
The Monster Dummer is quite a good one if
Okay.
you're in a stable emotional state.
Okay, right.
What is it? I like as well. Oh, I forget. Like the series where it's interviewed. I Am a Killer.
Oh, I'm a
I Am
Killer,
a Killer.
yes,
Yeah.
that's,
the
yeah.
people in like
The
in
convicted.
line for
Yes, the convicts.
Yeah.
They're actually being interviewed and they
Yeah.
tell their side of the story.
Yeah.
That is a.
Yeah.
You tell you're a psychologist.
I have one more. If you haven't watched, it's at Netflix too. Don't F with the Cats.
Oh yeah, that's a good
yeah.
one.
That's
a
a
great one.
Cyber crime, yeah.
Will Hatter.
By the way, from Canada.
I know.
Shocking. Shocking. Anyway.
Why am I clapping my hands?
I don't know.
Don't be that girl, Carol.
All right. Maybe you're watching a little too much of it. Anyway.